Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining this session. My name is Ganesh. I lead the support and pre-sales team for Manage Engine's PAM product. We're going to take a look at the current cybersecurity threat trends and how you can prepare for the next wave of cyber attacks. We're going to look at how to identify the weakest links in your current IT security setup. And we'll talk about certain strategies on how you can bolster your IT security with the help of security concepts such as zero trust and principles of least privilege. And at the end, we'll also see how Manage Engine can help you guys in terms of enhancing the security of your infrastructure and also make sure you're prepared for any form of cyber attacks that could potentially happen. And we'll also have a Q&A session at the end. So you will have ample time to ask any questions you have, and I'll be happy to answer them for you at the end of the session. So we'll start with a quick headlines of things that we have seen in the last few months. So there's been a lot of major cyber attacks all over the world. So there's this Colonial Pipeline attack where it basically caused disruption to gas supplies pretty much all throughout the East Coast of the United States. And then we had this Florida water system attack where there was a cyber attack where the water supply was in a dangerous situation of getting poisoned. And there was a leak of about 500 gigs of data that belongs to NBA concerning a particular a team, their financial information, and even the contract documents. And then there was the CD Projekt team's a cyber attack. I'm not sure how many of you guys are gamers, but CD Projekt is a leading video game designer based out of Poland. They are famous Witcher series, punk game. So their source code was basically hacked and stolen. And you can imagine the value of the source code of a currently under development game. And then there was this T-Mobile USA attack. There were 30 million users' social security and driving licenses were stolen. They are currently on sale in the dark web. So yeah, these are some of the cyber attacks that have happened just in the last few months. There's a huge wave of cyber attacks that are potentially happening these days. So the cyber attacks can basically be segregated into these categories. The common ones being the social engineering, where your users are potentially exploited for gaining either privileged access or their passwords. There's typical password attacks, SQL injections, eavesdropping. Malware is quite common where even if one of your users accidentally clicks on a phishing email perhaps or a link that could potentially drop a malware into their system, which could potentially spread across your infrastructure. And then there's denial of service where a huge set of requests are being bombarded into your network or to your application that potentially tries to bring down the service. Now, with regards to the cyber attacks, majority of them can be thwarted by just having a good PAM solution in place or having a good a security process in place that could help you in protecting against the majority of these cyber attacks. And to do that, the first thing you would need is to basically identify the weakest links in your infrastructure. So if you take a typical infrastructure, you will have these components. You will have users, both internal and external users. You will have devices, both critical infrastructure devices like servers, network devices, and so on, and also end user devices like laptops and corporate mobile phones that people use for accessing the corporate data and so on. And then you have the actual network. So you have user network, and then you have your demilitarized zones, secured networks, and so on. And you will have applications, all sort of applications running within your infrastructure. Some of them are on-premise applications. Some of them are cloud applications that your users use on a day-to-day basis. And then you have the data. So you have data across your IT infrastructure. Some of them might be accessible through applications or file shares. folders, document systems, and so on. Now, all these five components are actually interconnected, meaning your users will typically use devices to get through your network to access applications which contains data. So within these five components, you have a chain. And the first step you need to do is to basically check the links between each of these components to identify which is the weakest link in your infrastructure. And based on that, you can take action. Based on that, you can enforce policies to make sure you protect against cyber attacks. And so to do that, you could sort of have this fourfold strategy where you first identify what type of the component we're talking about, and then you classify it. So if you take users, like I said, it could be your internal users or external consultants or third-party contractors trying to access some system from an external network, maybe. So you could identify the type of user or the type of device or the network from where they're trying to reach, the application they're trying to access. And that would be the first step. And the next step would be to classify them based on their position. So if a request is coming from an external unprotected network, so you can pretty much assume either it's unmanaged or compromised and have the policies in place based on that judgment. And then you determine the posture based on the type of access. So is it critical, or is someone trying to access one of your test environments or development environments? So based on that, you can determine the severity of the access and the risk posture. And then finally, you secure the access by providing them with the access based on these factors. So if it's external user trying to connect through an unmanaged device to your network and trying to reach a critical server, then you can make sure that there's checks in place to authorize the access, review the access, and perhaps even record or audit the access to make sure there aren't any unauthorized operations happening in place. And you can also have security processes in place. So, for instance, zero trust is a process where you make sure no access is available by default. So always assume that any privileged access is a security threat, and based on that, you're going to delegate privileged access using a phased remote access approach. So no one gets direct access, no one gets full-blown admin access, and the requests go through a procedural workflow where it is vetted for any type of a security danger before the access is actually delegated. And it's quite easy to implement a zero trust model by using a PAM solution or by implementing checks in various areas of your infrastructure. So so this is a diagram that basically demonstrates how the access goes through with a zero trust and without a zero trust. So you have areas where you have to identify the posture and identify the device posture and validate the network with authentications, multiple layers of authentication in some cases, and then make sure the access is granted through a proxy or a gateway so that you have control over the access with full recording and auditing. And there's also the principles of least privilege. So with this process or a model, you basically make sure that by default, access is provided to no one. It's zero. By default, there are no high privileged accounts that are scattered across your users and network. And privileged accounts are typically disarmed by default, and the accounts are only activated as and when it's required. And you make sure that after the particular privilege access is granted, those accounts are disarmed so that it's not usable unless a proper workflow is handled. Common PAM solutions basically have this request workflow process where your non-admin users will have a way to access a PAM system, put in a request, supply the reason why they need access to a privileged server or an application or a data. And the administrators will be able to scrutinize the request, provide a valid reason, and then approve the request for a controlled time frame. So your users will be able to gain administrative privileges only for a configured or a controlled time frame with a valid workflow for releasing access in place. And there's also just-in-time elevation. Now, this is where, so your privileged accounts that are like built-in accounts like administrator or a root account, these are accounts that you will have control, assuming that not a lot of people in your enterprise will have access to these passwords. You would be able to safely have them disarmed and safely have them secured in a repository. But what about users' own accounts, like Active Directory accounts that people use on a day-to-day basis to access their own laptops, for example, or go to certain servers? Now, they obviously know their own passwords or they have their own certificates or keys, which validates them, which authorize them to access certain areas of the network. Now, just-in-time privilege elevation is a concept where you basically take these personal Active Directory accounts or account with keys for Linux systems, and you elevate the permission of these accounts on a temporary basis. So, for example, I'm a regular user on my laptop, and I can't install anything in my laptop on a normal day. I could use it for surfing the internet, maybe. I can use it for accessing my corporate portals and all of it, but I can't install a software on my own in my laptop because it's a company managed device and it is secured probably using a endpoint management solution. So let's say my day-to-day responsibilities involves me being able to install a particular piece of software on a particular day, perhaps for a temporary basis. So in such a situation, I would be able to access my company's PAM system, put a request and get it approved where my own Active Directory account will be elevated into the local admin group of my laptop. So for 30 minutes or for 1 hour, I will actually have local admin rights in my own laptop so that I could install whatever software that I need to install on a temporary basis. And the PAM system will make sure to automatically remove me from the local admin group, or even could be an Active Directory group. But the point is, a PAM system will help you in elevating accounts and demoting accounts on an automatic fashion based on a simple push of a button. So someone needs access, you push a approve button, and the request is approved, the user is elevated and demoted automatically after the particular time frame expires. And that's basically the just-in-time elevation. There are various ways of achieving the just-in-time elevation, but the most common way is to basically have a PAM system in place that helps you with the entire process. And this is a checklist of items to basically reduce the attack surface in your IT infrastructure. So you could think of it like a starting point for you to strategize your PAM implementation. So you may already have a PAM solution in place, or you probably have a simple password safe, or you could just be starting today to learn about PAM, the strategies, and the cyber attacks, perhaps. So in all of these cases, this checklist will come in handy for you to start looking at your infrastructure with a more focused approach. So for example, let's say someone was working for a company, maybe a few years back. And while they were working, they created an account called Ganesh in one of your critical servers, or in a database, or in your Cisco switch, perhaps. And then they left the organization. They no longer work for your company. But the accounts that they created is still there in all of these places. Now, how do you know about these accounts, and how do you take action against these accounts? So your normal monitoring solutions or SIM solutions probably won't help you because they created the accounts many months back or years back. So you need a system in place that can discover these unwanted accounts, these backdoor accounts that are sitting in these different places. So you need a system that can automatically identify the local accounts in your Windows servers or Linux machines, or even databases. Like imagine having a critical Microsoft SQL database. Someone created an account called Ganesh with a sysadmin rights, and they left the company. Now, granted that you have network security and safety and firewalls in place, but what if somehow they were able to gain access to your network? That means they can gain access to your database with full-on sysadmin rights and steal all of your data. So you need a system in place that frequently verifies these privileged accounts that are present across your IT infrastructure and report when a new account is being created anywhere inside your IT infrastructure. And then you need to make sure you don't have too many members being part of the domain admin group. So it's quite common for enterprises to have like 30 people or 50 users part of a domain admin group just because it's convenient, just because it's easy to let them manage DNS servers, mail servers, Active Directory, and so on. So it's easy, it's convenient. So people tend to have a lot of people being part of a domain admin group or local admin group. Now, the problem with this is if one of the Active Directory domain account is compromised, your entire domain is compromised because that account had full-on domain admin rights. Your entire domain is compromised. So you could assume you have to basically shut down everything and make sure everything is secured and all of it. So make sure a lot of people from being part of the domain admin and local admin group. Instead, in place that can actually grant them these domain admin and local admin rights as and when it's required without them having to be a full-on domain admin. So that's where PAM systems come in handy. It can act like a gateway between the user and the rights, which is domain admin rights. Perhaps I need domain admin rights to do something in the DNS server. My own account doesn't need to be a domain admin for that. You don't have to compromise on your security for convenience or vice versa. So you can have both convenience and security by having a PAM solution that can do the job of allowing people to do domain admin stuff, domain admin work, without actually having them being a domain admin or having a domain admin password in hand. So that's the kind of system that you should have. And third, disable root access and remote access. If somebody needs access to a critical server, make sure their own unmanaged devices or even corporate devices that they use does not have direct access to your network and to those devices. So imagine my own laptop, I use it on a day-to-day basis. I accidentally clicked on a email link that looked sort of legal or legit. I ended up having my laptop infected with a malware. Now imagine if this malware spreads to my company's corporate network, creating a havoc. So normally we have a PAM system in place, luckily. So if my laptop is infected by a malware, to spread to our corporate network just because my laptop doesn't even have activity in the corporate network. And if I need access, I use PAM solution to basically log in, request, get the request approved, and then use PAM as a proxy to connect to the devices. So in reality, my own system does not have remote access to the devices. And that's the setup you should have. People should not have direct access to the system from their own devices, and they should always go through a proxy or a gateway so that the access itself is audited and also secured. Rotate your passwords, keys, and certificates periodically. So it is actually quite common for any type of security audit to have this as a requirement where all of your local admin passwords, or root account passwords, or database SA account passwords should be rotated maybe every 30 days or 45 days. You need a system that can rotate these passwords, generate complex passwords based on the complexity you guys define, and make sure it provides a good enough report for you to submit when you go for any form of audits, be it PCI or ISO or any RC. They're going to ask you for evidence that you are periodically rotating these passwords, SSH keys, access keys, and even certificates, user certificates or database or application certificates. So you need a system in place that can help you in rotating these forms of authentication, be it passwords or keys or certificates. They are all used as a type of authentication. You need to have them rotated. And then implement network segmentation where direct access is denied, especially when they come from a non-secured network, by having a gateway-based approach. So a PAM solution requests, when the users request access, it's the PAM solution that basically grants them access, the medium. And make sure workflows in place so that people don't always have access to all the systems out of the box. They need to go through a proper workflow. So maybe they raise a ticket. The ticket is assigned approving authority, and it is approved in your ticketing system. And then the user gains that. And it's also important to have audits of all these activities and also have full-on session recordings if possible, so that you will be able to go back and investigate if something goes wrong, or make sure that everything that happens in your infrastructure are identified or validated for any form of anomalies. So this checklist will be if you are looking to especially start your PAM journey, or if you already have a system in place, make sure your system covers at least these points. These are basic points, to be honest. There are much more, but this is a good start. So make sure these items are in place before you can start moving up ahead in terms of even more hardcore PAM implementation. And so how can Manage Engine help with regards to this implementation? So we actually have 4 different products in our PAM suite. You will be able to pick one of these solutions on requirements, and these solutions will help you in achieving some of these requirements that we discussed in this presentation. It's not just a PAM suite. We actually have more than 60+ point products focusing on various IT requirements, everything from IT service management, operations management, IAM. We have solutions in place. And the best part is these solutions can coexist and work together in most cases. So you're not just looking for a single product for a single problem you're facing, but you're looking at something like a platform that can actually deal with your entire IT enterprise. And so our PAM solution is AES 256-bit encryption is what is used by it. It uses of it. It supports strong authentication. It supports high availability and disaster recovery. So you will all, regardless of how many offices you have or how many networks you have, in a distributed model. It also supports break glass in case if there is a huge disaster and you have mobile phone extensions for convenience. And the solution is available as both an on-premise software that you can install internally and host it internally, or you could install it in a cloud server like Azure or AWS. The system is AWS and Azure marketplaces, and it comes with the components. You don't need any prerequisites. All you have to do is just download the component and install it. And for the most part, it will work in a completely agentless mode. If there is a demilitarized zone or an isolated network that you would like to manage. With regards to editions, we have basic editions for enterprise businesses that are looking to start a PAM journey. Full-on PAM suite that would come in handy for large enterprises. And the licensing is already based on the number of administrative folks who are going to manage the system. So the end users are the number of devices you manage are also practically unlimited, and you've got options to choose whether you want to go for an annual subscription model or a perpetual model where the product works forever, and you can deploy it on a individual enterprise or in a multi-tenant architecture. So that's pretty much what we have in terms of the webinar and the topics today. So I will go ahead and look at some of the questions, and I'll be happy to answer those questions for you. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to type them in the questions tab, and I'll be happy to read them and answer those questions for you. And we'll also be sharing a slide deck with you guys after the call, and you will have them for review. And we'll be happy to provide personalized demos if you like, team, so you'll be able to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to set up personal demo. So the slide deck will be available for. We'll be shortly sending it with the slide deck, so you will do it. Yep, we will also have the contact details of our support team and the sales team in case if you would like commercials regarding the solution, or if you have any questions, you will have contacts to reach out to them? Do you have a proxy console for remote access for third parties that need PAM? So even though this PAM solution is an on-premise solution, you can install it on-prem and just expose the login page over the WAN. So you should use it as a replacement for VPN, especially when people are working from home. They will be able to use our PAM solution to gain access to external devices. And a lot of our customers also use it for access to external users and third-party consultants by exposing PAM. So they log into PAM and then they gain access to their internal devices, and everything they do gets recorded. Okay, then I was hoping for a little more about AD rights. I'll set up a special session for you to demonstrate the just-in-time elevation works, where the PAM solution helps you with elevating users to a local admin group or and content. The PAM solution also have plugins and integrations with leading platforms, so you will be able to use the solution to eliminate credentials uploaded inside your automation scripts, and you will also have ways to remove passwords from pretty much any part of you. Does the elevated access work on laptops not on VPN? The elevated access can work even on laptops that are not on VPN, but for that, you will not just need a PAM solution, you're going to need an endpoint management solution, basically something that works with an agent mode. Our PAM solution predominantly work in agentless mode. So that being said, if your users' laptops are in like home network, we won't be able to elevate them. So we do have another product called Application Control Plus that basically does the same job using an agent. So even if people are working from home without a VPN connection, you will be able to grant them elevated access, or even at the application level. You can let them run a particular application with the elevated permission, whereas everything else will work on a non-admin rights. Considering the recent attacks, do you think ICS industry has increasing scopes for PAM? Yep. So just in the last 15 months, there has been so many cyber attacks that it's hard to imagine. So it has become a common occurrence these days, where we read a headline about a serious cyber attack happening pretty much every week. So ICS systems, manufacturing industries, they usually have factory networks, OT networks with highly sensitive devices, and the need for PAM system has gone high up. So industry analysts like Gartner and Forrester believe that the PAM market is going to grow into a $10 billion market within the next couple of years. So everybody, even from a small businesses to a large enterprises, pretty much everyone are looking for a PAM solution, at least a basic PAM solution that can help them with basic auditing and reporting, to large enterprises looking for a full-on PAM suite that can take care of all their IAM needs. So PAM is something that is evolving. You can think of it like a help desk software that is required for every enterprise. PAM solution is also something that pretty much every single enterprise is going to need moving forward. All right, so that's pretty much all the questions that I can see. Like I said, we will be sending the slide deck after the presentation. We will also be sharing the contacts for you guys to reach out to us in case if you have any more questions, or if you want to get some commercial details, or if you want to set up a personalized demo for you and your team. We'll be more than happy to schedule a demo session, demonstrate all the capabilities of our PAM solution, and you can pick the right solution that will work for you. Perhaps you can start your journey with a basic solution that helps you with the basic discovery, password rotation, and then you can move on to upgrade to a full-on PAM suite moving forward. So that's it. Thank you so much for your time, guys. Thanks for joining the session, and I look forward to talking to you guys again in a different webinar. Thanks, and have a good day.